I've had the chance to actually go to the movie theaters more than usual the past few weeks. It's been nice to get back in there after not having gone often over the past few years. And I was there this past weekend, and I was thinking of, do you remember when the switch happened from showing up early to get a good seat to reserve seating? Like, I couldn't tell you like the year, 2010, 2011, probably somewhere around there, but like the it sort of like changed the entire culture of going to a movie on opening day or opening weekend. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. It really it was a thing. People don't realize it, but it was a thing where like you had to get there, otherwise you were sitting in whatever side spot, back alley, whatever seat you could find. And you would always then, you get the people that were like, oh, like, can you guys scoot down? And you were always pissed because I actually got in trouble at Alamo once because I told people to do that when I was hosting an event. It's because it was right when Vintage Park opened and they had not started doing assigned seating yet. And, we had a screening I did, and like obviously people were filing in like 5 minutes before screen time, and they couldn't sit together. And it's actually
if there's an empty seat,
there.
scoot towards the center, that kind
basically.
of
And everyone, there was somebody who wrote in with like a huge list of complaints, of which 3 or 4 were aimed at me specifically. But
and the host had red hair.
Yeah, they were incensed. I was hosting a screening of Seven, and I mentioned Alien 3 in passing and how the reputation regarding it was that it was not particularly good and that Fincher didn't have a very good experience making it, which almost made him not want to make more movies. And they didn't care for me to be trashing movies when I should be hyping up alternative, unique cinema like Alien 3, apparently. But so that was 12 or 13 when Vintage Park opened.
So maybe later than I anticipated, because I have a story specifically related to Vintage Park Alamo Drafthouse, which sadly isn't there anymore, but that was my
Is it still
theater
a Studio Movie Grill, or is it gone period now?
Studio Movie Grill. No, it changed to Star Cinema, which is actually my least favorite chain of that ilk of the food to your table. Well, maybe they're better than Studio. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Besides the point. But I have many fond memories of waiting in line for 2 hours before showtime with my buddies playing 20 Questions to kill time. I saw a lot of superhero movies that way. I remember this is also the time of midnight showings. If you want to see it on opening day,
you had to go at actually midnight.
Actually, in fact, The Dark Knight, which I did see at midnight, but that's the first time I remember they had 10 o'clock showings. They had a little bit early showings. But movie theaters were packed, more than they are now, because not just everybody there to see the movie, everyone's there 2 hours before their movie starts. So the lobbies and stuff were just full.
Packed.
None of it works this way anymore, because now when you buy a ticket, you pick the seat you're going to sit in. And Andrew, I remember when Alamo switched to this method because, much like the person that complained about you, I sent them a message. I don't remember if it was on social media or email, but I was like, I hate this new system. Can we please just show up and get our seats? What if I go to a movie with friends, I'm not buying all of their tickets, and now we have to all coordinate, make sure we buy them at the same time. Hopefully we can get seats next to each other. I was incensed. I felt very strongly about this, and I want to say all my friends, we were all in this battle together. Maybe it was, I'm the only one that wrote in. I'm the one that actually complained about it. But, it's the time, I was out of high school, but, I was still, a young kid. And this is before Venmo, and it was very easy to collect your cash. It felt more inconvenient.
Oh yeah. And I think that was definitely part of it too. Like that switch kind of came, and I don't know exactly what prompted it, but you talk about another instance in which the kind of social aspect of something disappeared. Because like you said, part of the experience at that point of going to the movie was hanging out with your friends, sitting with it. Because, like, I remember being with my parents or my dad. My dad always took us to the movies when I was a kid. Took me all the time. And then seemed surprised that I got, so addicted to movies. But, we would show up, half hour early. That was, like if we were seeing a regular screening of something, it was half hour early. And that was, if we didn't show up a half hour early, that was pretty much, the ultimate, oh man, we're gonna have trouble. This is gonna be tough, especially if it was an opening weekend type thing. And so, or we try to go Sunday at 2:00. So usually the screenings were everybody that was in the mad rush to see it Friday, Saturday has already seen it. But that piece of it of arriving early and sitting and hanging out with your friends and doing that, that's gone now. Liz and I saw Superman the other day on my birthday, and we didn't anticipate this, but she needed a new phone, and there's a Google store at the mall we were seeing the movie at, and so we ended up literally walking in as the movie started, but that's, people do that now. Because I get there almost always early still anyway, and I sit in my seat and I eat through my first bucket of popcorn that way before the movie starts. I can go get my second.
You pregame, yeah.
I pregame. I see Maria Menounos. We have our chats. I go through my bit. But truly, well, and just and those ads at the beginning have only gotten longer and longer and longer, to the point that AMC will even tell you now, when you buy a ticket in their app, movie typically starts 25 to 30 minutes after listed time.
I actually checked the time last time I went to the movies. It was a full 30 minutes after start time for the movie. It is crazy.
So people, on one hand, I can't fault people that are all right, I'm not going to, if my seat's guaranteed, I'm not going to sit through 30 minutes of stuff, because they're not, dedicated to the cause like I am. But that was a big one too, because I remember, God, what was it? It was Alamo did a free screening of Mad Max Fury Road when it was getting ready to come out. And I remember going to that theater. It was my friend Felipe, I think. We both and we had to sit in a line outside the theater, and as you came through, I think you picked tickets, you picked spots that were left as they went through the line, and it was in their biggest theater, but that piece of it of sitting and hanging out, we talked about that with the video stores, there was this whole social aspect of renting movies, and that whole piece of it is gone. And this is another instance where it's the same. They've essentially removed a big social aspect of it. And don't get me wrong. And again, it's one of those things that now, especially in 2025, it is undoubtedly a more efficient system. It makes perfect sense. It completely.
It's totally better now. We can lament what we lost, but maybe it's the fact that I'm, older man, rapidly approaching 40. I go to the movies with my family. I'm not going to sit 2 hours with my 30 minutes, whatever,
No.
with my kids and stuff to try to get a good spot for the four of us. It's nice to know you bought your ticket and your seat's guaranteed. You just buy your ticket. It's better in every way. And I kind of look back on me being so upset that I wrote in and laugh, because
It's kind of go ahead.
Well, I mean, if I miss that time hanging out with my friends before the movie, we can still do that. We can still hang out. It just doesn't have to be in a line outside the doors to get into the theater.
I don't know if you did this, but we hung out 2 days ago.
We did. We didn't even go see a movie. We just hung out for the hell of it.
It's because we could. It turns out you can just do that. No, it kind of reminds me. It's one of those things where I think maybe when they first did it, the lack of an easy way to pay your friend. I paid my friend, the TMNT screenings they're doing, TMNT 90. They're not an A-list at AMC, but AMC finally added a whole week's of time. They're showing it at 6:30 and 9 o'clock every night that whole week, which is awesome. But it's not an A-list. So my friend went and bought them and was hey, send me money. And I was oh, took me 15 seconds to send him $15.
That's funny because I'm going to the same screen in a different city, different day, but I'm also going to that TMNT screening, and our mutual friend Doug bought the tickets, and it's the same thing. Like, hey, I'll just get you back. Literally, it'll just be like, hey, you buy the ticket, I'll buy you a bucket of popcorn. Like, it's so not hard to manage
it's
that.
Easy. It feels to me a little bit like, oh God, I think it was when, I think it was kind of like when the Xbox One and the PS5 were both about to come out, and the Xbox One was like promoting a lot of like DRM, where like if you bought a game, you couldn't share it with your friends because it was going to like lock it to you specifically. There was all this like always online checking. Like they were trying to push always online with the Xbox One.
I think the Xbox One is PS4 generation.
Oh, then what's the current one?
Xbox Series S and Series X. But I think you're right. Xbox One was the one that was doing that. So it was a generation ago.
I don't think it was the PS4 though, or maybe it was. Either way, one of the when one of the PlayStation versus Xbox's like releases was happening, and it was when they were both had a new one coming out.
Yeah,
Xbox really tried to force always online. They really tried to push that, and like with games, they were like, "Hey, if you want to lend your friend a game," they were like, you can't do that because there's going to be DRM that's going to be locked to your account, and like you can't do that. And it was kind of an outrage where people were like, you can't force us to do this. Like, there was this brief moment where like the idea of having to always have an internet connection to use your system was pushed back against pretty heavily. And I remember like PlayStation made like a joke video that was like how to share games on PlayStation, and it was a guy just handing somebody a game.
Yeah,
and it was, but now always online is pretty much the default for everything. Like, no question. Like, so it was one of those things where they pushed it maybe just a bit too soon, but then it became the standard, and now nobody really talks about it anymore. I don't know if
on the
it's
Switch,
better necessarily, but yeah.
On the Switch 2, if you buy a physical cartridge, that cartridge is just a license key. And you download the game, and you just have to have your license key inserted. But there's no physical games anymore. That on the Switch 2. Right. I mean, the other systems still have them.
But like the idea that like, I bought physical games and I put them in, and then it's immediately like, oh, cool, let me download this 60 gig patch. And I'm like, wait.
Well,
why did I do this?
It doesn't read from the disc, and it hasn't done that for a few generations. It installs it to your system, but the data is still, the base game is still on the disc. It just transfers it over and then reads it off the system. But Switch 2, the game itself is not on the physical little cartridge anymore.
I haven't found a Switch 2 yet, but it's going to happen. And then maybe I'll give my Switch to somebody. Listeners, if you want a Switch, when I get a Switch 2, let me know.
Or just have 2 Switches, Andrew. One for the bedroom.
That's a lot of work.
All right, this isn't a video game episode. That's a theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello, and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined as always by my Metalhead co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Yo.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Real Bands Month, and this week we are talking the 1999 film Detroit Rock City. Andrew, what is your history with this movie? Did you see it in theaters back in the day? Home video? Have you seen it before preparing for this podcast?
I had definitely seen it before. Wouldn't say I definitely didn't see it in theaters or anything like that. This was 99. I was 12, despite my dad being a huge Kiss fan. I don't think this was something that was on the radar for me to see as a kid. I definitely did see it later. Have not watched it in some time though, so I was curious to go back and revisit it and see what was up.
Yeah, pretty similar. I did not see theaters. I think I was technically 9 when it released, and this movie is rated R, which is an insane choice. We'll get to it, but I did not see it then, but I did see it back in the day. I saw it shortly after hitting home video. Probably caught it on VHS, watched it with my brother, maybe some friends, and had a good enough time with it. And then over the years, mostly haven't thought about it much. There's a few scenes that stuck with me, but it's not something I've revisited regularly until watching it this week for the podcast. And let's talk a little bit about, this is Real Bands Month. All these movies we're talking about are based around or starring actual real artists, performing artists, musicians, bands. And this is a Kiss movie. And unlike, maybe Tenacious D, where it's starring the band members as characters, it doesn't do that, but they are playing themselves in this whole movie. I mean, it's Kiss propaganda. It's all about how great Kiss is. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it is what it is. It's a 90-minute commercial for Kiss and how desperate kids are to go see Kiss. But I do think it's smart that it is a period piece and it's set in the 70s. And in 1999, they weren't acting like 1999 teens were dying to go see Kiss.
Yeah, that would have been a weird choice. Like, Kiss was doing a like reunion tour at the time, because I actually know an unfortunate amount about Kiss. I didn't really intend to, but I do. And they did a 96-97 reunion tour that was brought back Ace Frehley and Peter Criss to the band. And it was massively successful. Like, it was a huge success, which is why I kind of assume this movie ended up getting made, was just because there was a resurgence in interest in the band around that time. Although I think by 99, that the novelty had... It's one of those things where, like, the boom happens and your response to the boom is not quick enough to happen before the boom ends. And I think by 99, the novelty had kind of worn off and people were kind of like, all right, let's move on. And still, they went through and made the movie. And like, I don't know if that's specifically the reason why they made it. I presume. But
it is,
yeah, I think
it is wild. Well, I mean, first off, I'm sure you know way more about Kiss than I do when you say an unfortunate amount. But even as someone like me who's never gone out of his way to listen to Kiss, I just know like the hits and when they show up in a movie. I'm not related to anyone that's super into Kiss, but I can name every member of the band. That's so weird that I know all 4 members of Kiss. There's some bands I genuinely like and listen to, and I couldn't tell you the name of the bassist or drummer. So it's wild how seeped into pop culture they, I would say are, maybe were. I don't think, I think the time is finally passed. Like, I don't, like, we were in, 90s or 2000s, you had like Gene Simmons as a pop culture personality. He had a reality show, but I think all that stuff has maybe finally subsided a little bit. But yeah, even people that don't actively listen to the band know a decent amount about the band, which is pretty odd.
it is odd. And the band is officially retired. Like, they did a farewell tour, and I think it ended in 23. So they kind of finally like packed it in, and then they all just tour solo now, which, like, okay, like, why retire the band if you're all just going to keep touring anyway? But I guess they get to play smaller shows now, don't have to do the big production. Because Kiss shows, I saw them in 2009 or 10. I took my dad, and like, it's a whole thing. Like, it's almost not a concert, it's almost like a production.
Good time though.
But,
good show.
Yeah. If you're into that sort of thing.
I saw a Kiss tribute band once. So they had the makeup, but no, like, there's no pyrotechnics in the House of Blues. I saw them at, but I heard the tunes.
But yeah, it's what's funny too is that like those 4 members of Kiss are very, very iconic. Like Ace Frehley, Peter Criss, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons. But like Ace Frehley and Peter Criss are not in the band very long, and then they come back for that reunion tour, but then they're gone again. And when they leave the second time in the 2000s, they just kept using the makeup on other people. So like Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons just once they brought back the look, they were just like, okay, this is the thing that people want. So even if we don't have Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, we're just gonna keep using it. So I think Ace Frehley got replaced by a gentleman named Tommy Thayer, and then Peter Criss, Eric Singer had been a drummer for them for a long time before Peter Criss came back, and then when Peter Criss left again, or rather they pushed Peter Criss out again, Eric Singer just came back. And like Eric Singer is a fantastic drummer, and Tommy Thayer is a very, very good guitar player who apparently like full on had to reteach Ace Frehley how to play some of the songs when Ace Frehley rejoined the band. But
when they pushed Peter Criss out of the band, do you think he landed on his feet?
I hope. God, I hate you. And it's interesting because like they do the makeup stuff because like Ace Frehley and Peter Criss both also leave in the late 70s, early 80s, and they tried other people like Vinnie Vincent and Eric Carr and a couple of others all come in and do different makeup, and then finally there's this big moment where like they take off the makeup and they it was 83, I think. It was a whole big thing. They did an album called Lick It Up, which is whatever. But and then from 83 to like 96, 95, they were like, oh, we're going to go without makeup. And then they brought it back when they brought back the original lineup, released an album called Psycho Circus in 96 or 97 or 98. And then the funny thing is that Psycho Circus was hailed as this reunion album, but there is one song on that album that all four of the original members play on. That's it. All the rest of it is just other people playing the songs. And Kiss is a very weird band, but it's basically Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons' thing, and they basically did whatever they want. And Ace Frehley and Peter Criss have spoken at length about, like, Peter Criss was always on contracts and got to a point where, like, his contract just wasn't renewed. Like, he's a founding member of the band or one of the most iconic members, and, like, they full on were just like, yeah, we're not bringing you back because it's easy, because they were like, it's just easier to bring in somebody who essentially can wear your makeup and then just do what we ask, and we don't have to worry about it. And Ace Frehley always was kind of the same way. So like they were like, we don't just want to be like henchmen, but that's what Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons wanted. So it's a very, very strange band with a very, very strange history. But what they should do is make a legacy sequel to Detroit Rock City about the same four guys trying to see Kiss on their reunion tour in the 90s now.
Well, Andrew, let's think about it. This movie. It takes place in what, 77? 78?
78.
So it was made in 99, 21 years after when it takes place. So if they make a movie now in 2025, it would take place in 2004.
You could bump it to 97 and be just fine.
Well, yeah, but think about it. Like, what if this was a movie about people dying to see Creed in concert and they released it today? Like, what would be the equivalent of like
I had that exact same thought of like the movie's released in 99, takes place in 78. That's 21 years. So like, who was the biggest band in 2004? Like, highest selling album.
Coldplay? People are dying to go see Coldplay. I could get to the Coldplay show.
Usher's Confessions was the best-selling album of 2004.
Wow.
Yeah, what were the other best-selling albums of that year? American Idiot by Green Day. You could do a whole album about people dying to see Green Day.
That one kind of, it's not funny because it kind of makes sense. Like, it makes me feel old that would be a throwback. But Green Day is like still, doing their thing. I guess Kiss kind of was too in 99, but
yeah, Kiss was still, well, yeah, at 98, 99, that was the whole big thing. But like,
yeah,
so 78 would have been after Love Gun and before Dynasty. And Dynasty is kind of where Kiss goes off the rails, because Dynasty is I Was Made for Loving You and all that stuff, and people kind of think they'd lost the sauce at that point. So So yeah, this movie takes place like right at like the zenith of Kiss's popularity in the late 70s, and that's probably important.
All right, well, let's set the stage for the release of this film. It comes out August 13th, 1999, made on a budget of $17 million, nice and modest. However, at the box office worldwide, this movie brings in $5.8 million. That is a huge bomb. Like, I'm not surprised this movie didn't make a ton of money. But I remember it coming out so clearly. I remember the marketing. I remember a specific joke all over the trailers. I remember seeing it, granted, on home video. But this made less than $6 million. Its opening weekend, it was 13th at the box office. It's just insane.
Miserable. Like, it's absolutely miserable.
Critically, it's not
is-
well received, but not panned. It's a 51% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, so middle of the road, split reception. The audience score, as probably expected, is a bit higher, 82% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I was not surprised to see that, but woof, that box office is rough. And Andrew, it's got to be because it's rated R, right? Like, this is a teen comedy. This is like aimed at 14 to 16-year-old boys, and it's rated R. They can't go see it.
Yeah, dude, this box office number is absolutely insane. I'm looking at what else came out that weekend. This is ridiculous. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, makes $1.5 million in its 13th week of release. Detroit Rock City made $2 million in its first week. That is like The Haunting made more money than it made made almost twice as much. Nah, not twice as much, but $3.3 million in its fourth week. Like, the Blair Witch Project made $14 million in its fifth week. Like, holy, like, you forget the Blair Witch Project really did tear it up. Like, the fact that it made $14 million in its fifth week of release.
Yeah, off a $7 budget. It's a pretty good return.
Yeah, like, the return on the Blair Witch Project might be the greatest return in the history of film. Like,
Yes, I think maybe Paranormal Activity beat it. Maybe. But yeah, I think
Blair Witch
definitely at the
Project's
time was
worldwide
profitable.
gross is $250 million, and I think it cost $10,000 to make.
That's incredible.
Yeah, Paranormal Activity is very similar. Where like that, but it's got that. Yeah, it took. Oh no, its budget was between $200,000 and $750,000. So even if you take the $750,000 number, you're looking at like a 400 to 1 return on Blair Witch Project. Whereas Paranormal Activity, this makes for great. Paranormal Activity was $215,000 and made $195 million. So it looks like it's a lower overall cost. So maybe. I think Blair Witch Project got a lot of marketing once it was picked up and distributed, and that's probably where a lot of that $750,000 comes from. Anyway, but like The Haunting is ahead of it. The Iron Giant is making more money. Mystery Men.
The Iron Giant and Mystery Men, both notorious flops, and they're making more money.
Yeah, like Mystery Men made $4.7 million in its second week. Deep Blue Sea, Thomas Crown Affair, Runaway Bride. Wow, this is a snapshot. And like, I love that the biggest new release that week is Bowfinger, the Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, that was a big deal when it came out. Sure.
So
1999,
wild
greatest
to look at
year
this.
for film, as they say, Andrew.
Nah, whatever. Yeah, Bowfinger, Inspector Gadget, and Deep Blue Sea. Yeah, man, all hits.
Good stuff.
No fat here.
Let's take a look at the creative team, Andrew. The movie is written by Carl V. Dupree. Interesting career path here. In movies, they have a number of writing or co-writing credits on movies like The Prophecy 3, Hellraiser, Hellseeker, and Hellraiser Hellworld. I don't even know what numbers those are in the franchise, but you know, they're deep in the series at that point. So a lot of horror stuff, a lot of weird stuff. He's also an author, has some books. I went to his website, and on the front page, he has an audiobook released through YouTube, and episode 1 was embedded there. It's called Gorilla Arms. It's about this woman with really, really buff arms. In the first episode, she brutally kills a clown. It's the splatter gore genre. I skimmed through it. It was weird. It was weird stuff. So, weird career from this guy, and I don't really know where Detroit Rock City comes from because obviously he does a lot of like horror and niche and sci-fi stuff. But he's the only credited writer here. This was his baby from a screenwriting standpoint. I actually I could not find much information about the production of this movie. I'm really curious. Like, does the Kiss camp start it? Did they hire him to write a movie about the band? Did he just happen to want to write a movie about Kiss and they were okay with it? I could not find these answers.
Me either. And to provide some insight, he writes the 6th and the 8th Hellraiser movie.
Okay.
And
how are those regarded among the Hellraiser fandom, Andrew?
There is a very iconic line said by Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies that says, "Your suffering will be legendary even in hell." What he is describing is your experience watching all the films in that franchise. And,
all the films in the franchise?
1 and 2 are fine. The reboot that David Bruckner did a couple years ago is pretty good too. But the first 4 all kind of form like a loose. There's a loose story through the first 4. Once you get there, you start getting a lot into like that, like, oh, this wasn't a Hellraiser script, but we're kind of gonna add Pinhead to it, and like there's a video game one. Is that Hellworld? I think is the one that's like, there's one that's about it's Hellworld, the one that Carl Dupree writes, which that one was full on not meant to be a script for a Hellraiser movie, and it was turned into a Hellraiser movie. And it's about an online like computer game, and so like they start like doing these weird standalones after those first 4, and they're just like Scott Derrickson of like Sinister and Exorcism of Emily Rose, Doctor Strange, Black Phone. Like he directs Hellraiser 5, and like so good for him, like escaping that, because Hellraiser 5 was like the first of like the direct to videos, and it's usually not a great pipeline to success, but yeah, looking at it's a very, very strange career from Carl Dupree here, and also was an editor, as you mentioned. Was an assistant film editor on Scream 2, assistant editor on Mimic. So some interesting choices here. But yeah, I can only presume that this was coming from the Kiss camp. Like I have to guess that like there was just a studio kind of willing to be like, hey, turns out you guys want a Kiss movie? Like, hey, you guys, I can see the studio head like crunching the numbers in 96 or 97 and being like, oh, Kiss is so hot right now. And then by 99, not calculating that by 99 the appeal would wear off. But anyway, strange career.
Andrew, I sent you a link on Discord to Carl Dupree's website. Just so you can scroll down that front page and see the thumbnail for Gorilla Arms, the first episode of Gorilla Arms, a splatterpunk saga.
This better not awaken anything in me.
It is a super ripped woman in like briefs and a tank top. And hit play, and don't listen to it or whatever, but hit play just so you can see the image that's there as the story plays.
You asked for this. Did I ask for this? I don't think I did.
It's a giant like stock image of a clown face, and then this illustration of the buff Gorilla Arms woman. And
this is from 1 month ago. That's probably assuredly AI. There's probably
I think it's not him reading it. I think it's an AI voice reading it too. So
I would have done it for cheap, man.
And the movie is directed by Adam Rifkin. Another pretty interesting career, is definitely well into the business at this point. A writer on such movies as Mouse Hunt. Remember that weird Nathan Lane movie from the 90s? Small Soldiers, making him a alum of the show. He would go on to be a writer on the 2007 Underdog. Do you remember that exists, Andrew? They made a live action adaptation of the 60s cartoon Underdog?
I did remember that, but they also like made it live action. So like,
yeah, that's what I just said. A live action adaptation.
I know.
Andrew. I just said
like,
that. I don't even remember.
Like,
I've seen the poster. Do they animate a mouth moving, talking? I don't even know how they did
Chris,
that.
I've never seen it.
I've only seen like the poster. Yeah, I only know if I've ever seen a
I have no
trailer.
desire to see it. Like, it's the one thing I can at least respect about the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie is they were like, you know what? It's going to be a live action movie, but we're going to animate Rocky and Bullwinkle. I was like, thank you for that. Like, that's what you should have done. And like when they made a Peabody and Mr. Sherman movie, they animated that, and they were like, okay, like that feels like it's a holdover from like the George of the Jungle, Dudley Do-Right era, like 8 years previously, and it's just like, okay, you shouldn't do this. You were so concerned with whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should.
He also worked on a movie I quite enjoy called Chillerama, which is almost like Grindhouse style. It's 4 short films, all based on like 50s, 60s B-movie premises, and it's really fun. And the segment that he wrote and directed is called Wadzilla. It's a mix of Godzilla and something else. I'll let you try to decode that one, but it's a really silly, really fun short film, and I do recommend that movie overall. But a lot of writing credits, but some directing credits. This isn't his only feature film directing credit, but in a lot of ways, it is his biggest directorial effort.
Yeah. Like you said, alum of the show. I've never actually seen Chillerama. Maybe I'll get there.
It's a good time.
But yeah, it's an interesting career that he's had. Like, he's a co-producer and an uncredited writer on Going Overboard, the Adam Sandler comedy from 1989. You've got these directorial that are like clearly like direct-to-video era stuff, like Invisible Maniac, Psycho Cop 2. Eventually does an action comedy called The Chase, which has got Charlie Sheen and Christy Swanson, and then he does Mouse Hunt, which is like he just writes Mouse Hunt, and then Gore Verbinski directs it. But then like
Gore Verbinski, I forget about that. What?
Yeah.
What I got? I do I need to rewatch Mouse Hunt? I've legit
Apparently.
always heard like, hey, this movie is actually pretty good. Y'all remember that weird movie? Like, it's it's good. I gotta go back and watch it.
Obviously, Small Soldiers we talked about there, and then like you said, you get into Detroit Rock City, Zoom, the weird superhero school movie with Tim Allen, Knucklehead, the WWE comedy film starring The Big Show. He writes that. Just a very, very strange set of things. He did do The Last Movie Star a couple years ago, which had Burt Reynolds in it. I heard decent things about it, never went and watched it. And then for some reason, he's an executive producer on Willy's Wonderland, which was one of that. It was that era where Five Nights at Freddy's was really, really popular, but for some reason, they weren't making a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. So like 3 different people essentially went and made Five Nights at Freddy's movies that were ultimately better than the Five Nights at Freddy's movie was. #PP. But
and Willy's Wonderland is the Nick Cage one, right?
It's the Nick Cage one, which is just wild. Like the fact that there's basically a Five Nights at Freddy's movie starring Nick Cage. Folks, go watch it. It's a trip.
All right, Andrew. Well, it's time that we jump into this movie. Speaking of trip, and we talk about all the positives, everything we like about the film Detroit Rock City. Andrew, you ready for this?
Sure.
Four high school friends, Hawk, Trip, Jam, and Lex, are stoked to be going to see their favorite band in concert, Kiss. But when Jam's overprotective mother finds out, she burns the tickets. After Trip wins new tickets through a radio contest, they spring Jam from his boarding school punishment and set off on a road trip to Detroit for the concert. But when they find out Trip hung up the phone too early after winning the tickets, the four friends each make one last attempt to score tickets any way they can. Extremely simple premise, Andrew. Four friends want to get to a neighboring city to see their favorite band in concert. It's literally the same plot of Dazed and Confused. It's just a different genre.
Is the plot of Dazed and Confused getting the concert tickets? I thought that was just the end of the movie.
Well, there's not a plot to Dazed and Confused. Just watch these kids hang out. But
I know the end is like, let's go get tickets for Aerosmith, but like, didn't think that was like the driving plot of the movie as such.
You know, Andrew, I wanted to make the joke, and you're just really overanalyzing my comparison here. Really killing the
That's
comedy.
a new one for me. I've never really done that before. I'm sorry.
Are they going to see Aerosmith in like Huntsville? Like, isn't it like a really
I think it's
unrealistic?
Houston. I think it's supposed to be Houston. They're going to Houston to see
Okay.
Aerosmith. Yeah, the travel to Houston. Yeah. Leaves with Wooderson and Slater to travel to Houston to obtain tickets to an Aerosmith concert.
To Houston. Maybe they're aren't they in a college town? I feel like Huntsville's
I think
involved in some
the
way.
implication,
Or maybe like they don't explicitly say what town they're in, but you can like
I
piece it
think they're
together.
supposed to be in Austin, but I think like a lot of people have said that like Linklater went to Sam Houston State University, and like it's supposed to like there's definitely meant to be like allusions to Huntsville throughout the movie. That's kind of meant to be.
Got it.
Kind of the idea. I don't know that it was actually shot there necessarily. I don't think it was, but
Well, it's probably shot in Austin where he shoots all his stuff, but
yeah.
I got you. All right, Andrew, we
Linklater-
aren't
Yeah.
talking about Linklater films. We're not talking about
We're
Dazed
not.
and Confused. We're talking about a different 70s nostalgia film. But before we get into the specifics and the scenes, we're going to talk about the cast of this movie. And we're going to start with the high point, best casting, best performance of the film, because every episode we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the film with their performance. We recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. Andrew, kiss us off. Who? No, it sounded better, Med. Kick us off here. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for Detroit Rock City?
Great question, Chris. I will be going with Joe Flaherty as Father Philip McNulty. No. He's in one scene. I just love Joe Flaherty. But I'm gonna be going with one of our leads here. I'll be going with Sam Huntington as Jam. Basically he's I don't know if he's the one with the most plot given to him. But he is the one with the overprotective mother who burns the tickets, who ultimately gets put into this super religious boarding school, and then ultimately gets sprung by his friends and goes on this adventure regardless. But I think this character is one of the more relatable ones, like as far as like, you know, the overbearing parent. He's kind of given a lot more to work with than a lot of the other guys. The other guys, you don't really get a whole lot of dive into their personal lives or who they are, or what their deal is. They find ways to illustrate things about him throughout the movie, but with Sam, you kind of get the most material, and I think he runs with it pretty well. You've got the overbearing mother, you've got the girl at the school who has a crush on him that he runs into, and they do things in a church that you're not supposed to. But all those pieces come together to kind of make him, I think, one of the more well-rounded characters of the movie, such as they are. And I think it's just a relatively easy performance, I think, to empathize with, as far as, you know, we've all had, and, you know, hopefully our parents weren't that overbearing, but we've all dealt with parents who, you know, probably didn't approve of some of our media choices, and, you know, various things of that regard. So in that regard, yeah, said regard too many times. But in that vein, I'll be going with Sam Huntington as Jam, the drummer for the band Mystery. I love that they talk about the band Mystery opening for Kiss when all Mystery plays is Kiss covers.
Well, maybe they have some originals that we don't hear from, but that the concept of it would be a very Kiss thing for a tribute band to open
cover
for Kiss,
band.
though.
Here's our set. You cannot play songs from the main set.
Yeah, this is a good pick, though. I really like Sam Huntington from the things I've seen him in. He's in Jungle to Jungle. Speaking of Tim Allen, he is Tim Allen's half white, half native son in that movie named Mimi Siku, a movie I saw a ton as a kid and have a soft spot for, but I have not rewatched it in some time.
I bet it's definitely held up.
Totally. I bet it has.
No way any of that has aged poorly.
But I most associate him with a movie he made a couple years after this called Not Another Teen Movie. Another movie I've seen a number of times, and there's a lot of people in that movie that I have a hard time taking them like seriously, and I don't think I see them in because their face is just funny to me because of how ridiculous that movie is. He's an alum of the show because he played Jimmy Olsen on Superman Returns. So we have talked about him before, and still out there, still doing his thing. Had a small part on Veronica Mars, it looks like. He showed up on one episode of iZombie. He was in Sully somewhere in there a few years back. So still doing his thing, but this is definitely like the hot period for him as an actor. But I like this. He's the sensitive one in the group. He's the one that is genuinely interested in a girl and not just like horny sex driven, as a lot of characters are in teen comedies. Because he's sensitive, his friends drop the F slur on him a lot. I'm not getting on a soapbox here or anything. Obviously that word just hits ears differently in 2025, but this movie takes place in 1978. Like in 1999, the word is still being used casually, but it takes place in 78. And I wonder, like, if you make this movie today, but set it in 1978, do you still have the French talk like that? Because it's like historically accurate. I don't know. I'm not saying I have the answers. I think it's interesting. I don't mean to go off on a tangent there, but yeah, that word is said a lot in this movie, both as insults and casually friends ribbing on each other. But yeah, I like this pick, Andrew. I like his big triumphant moment when he finally stands up to his mom. It's about the closest thing we get to an arc in this movie, is him finally standing up to his mom. But the movie's not really about anything like that. It's just a bunch of teen movie gags that ends in a fun concert. Andrew, it's a good pick. I was a little bit torn for my Mark Strong pick, and I'm torn between two people, and I'm gonna go with my heart, with someone who's I've always had a fondness for. I'm gonna give it to Edward Furlong as Hawk. I think he is, at the time, definitely the most established person in this young cast. Maybe not today. We'll get to that. But he is, I don't know if he's like giving legitimacy to it, but I think he's just so believable as like the burnout teen rocker. And he's very funny. We'll talk about it in scenes, but like what he's willing to do on screen for the sake of comedy is really kind of surprising when you look at his work up to this point. And he's got a fun role in Terminator. He's got the real heavy stuff in American History X. But this is, in a lot of ways, showing a new side of Edward Furlong. And he is, like, turning out to be, like, a very well-rounded, good, interesting actor. Now, he's an alum of the show, kind of. We talked about him on Terminator Dark Fate. And in The Green Hornet. So we got a chance to talk about him a couple of times. It's not long after this that his demons catch up to him, and he has some serious addiction and substance abuse issues, and it leads to lots of horrible stuff in his life. And it does seem like for a number of years now, though, he is living sober and seems to be doing much better and being healthy, and you love to see it. But Andrew, as I've probably said in the previous episodes we talked about him, one reason I have a soft spot for Edward Furlong is because this is like the number one celebrity that I was ever told that I look like, especially like throughout high school where I was my skinniest and I had that kid's jawline. One time on Facebook, I posted a black and white picture of Edward Furlong with no comments, just the picture. But the comments were like very complimentary of the nice black and white photo of me. Like it was pretty it was a pretty good what am I trying to say? You know, sometimes you get told you look like somebody and you're like, I don't see it. There are angles. I understand why I'd get the Edward Furlong comparison. So yeah, I've always liked him. Like I said, I'm glad he seems to be doing much better now, but I really like his role here. Like I said, he brings a lot of believability. Some of the other characters are definitely playing like teen movie tropes and over the top stuff, but I certainly buy him as this type of character. So for that reason, I want to throw him a Mark Strong award.
That's why, folks, the Best of the Rest movie is going to be Edward Furlong and Seth Rogen just sitting at a desk speaking to Mike.
The Green Hornet. We're both in the Green Hornet. Surely we said that
Both
on
in
the
Green
episode.
Hornet. I hope we did. There's no way to check though.
It's just a Zoom call. It's just a Zoom
It's
recording
literally
with
like it's just the
Edward
Zoom recording.
Furlong
It's a screen capture movie where it's just them talking about like I don't know. Find out. Yeah, it's just them talking about Green Lantern the whole time. The script is literally just a transcript of our Green Lantern episode. And then it's a scene of them hanging out at your house playing Jackbox games. That's the movie.
Angie, that sounds great.
This
Let's
sounds like the
finance
best
this.
movie of all time. Yeah, definitely. But I had a feeling you might go this way, Chris. He gets a little bit to work with here. There is a recurring thread throughout his character that he's got stage fright. Like this is apparently like a big problem with like Mystery, like moving on and doing anything more as a band is the fact that he's got this intense stage fright. Now, the matter of which he overcomes this stage fright is questionable for a variety of reasons. But the sequence in question being he enters an amateur stripping contest at a strip club to try and win $100 to buy tickets to Kiss, where he uses a fake ID. And, you know, I don't know if the implication here is supposed to be that he's 18. Obviously not. Because otherwise, I guess at a strip club, you probably need to be 21 because of the alcohol. But I don't know. Anyway, a lot of questionable things in this process. But he does they do make a moment of him overcoming that stage fright and kind of, you know, taking that head on and kind of reaching that point where he can be like, cool, now I can launch this to something else, which is cool. So everybody kind of gets a moment like that where they get like a brief little moment to kind of some minor thing, but it's good stuff. And like I said, obviously he's the biggest. I mean, this is post Terminator 2, post American History X. So he's probably the most famous, quote unquote, member of the cast. And it's a good performance. He's a good, if there's an anchor to the movie, it's his character basically. And he does a good job of that.
Now, Andrew, I was considering someone else for the Mark Strong Award. I do like the performance, and I will let you take the layup on it here. James DeBello plays Trip, a character probably most people think of when they think of this movie because of a moment that was all over the trailers, Andrew. But what do you think about the character of Trip? What springs to mind?
Jay from Jay and Silent Bob springs to mind.
1000%. I mean, he's got the long straight hair, always wearing a beanie. He's a stoner and he's an idiot. I mean, it's checking all the
Mewes
boxes.
was clearly unavailable. That's all I can really take away.
Or maybe too old to be a high schooler in 1999.
And these guys weren't. Like,
Ooh, I thought her for long's like 21. I mean, it's not that crazy.
James DeBello, I guess, was 19. Giuseppe Andrews was almost 20. Yeah, I guess it's not as bad as some. I watched some of the Substitute sequels starring Treat Williams, and yeah, he goes to these super rough and tumble schools full of 30-year-olds. Like,
Yeah.
it's clearly like he's fighting these people, and you're just like, yeah, these are not children by any regard. So this man's just beating up other men, but wild set of movies, those Substitutes, because Treat Williams is not in the movie The Substitute. He's just in all the sequels. But yeah, so I guess they're all in the realm. But how old was Jason Mewes in '99? Because that'd be right after Dogma. So yeah, probably like 74. So he would have been 25. I mean, I think he could have gotten away with it, but
well, do you think like when they're coming up with a costume and look at this character, they are intentionally modeling it after Jay, or like well, he's
I don't know, man.
Because this is also just a classic stoner look. I mean, let's not act like Jay's look is an accident. Like this is
long
just
hair with a beanie is not like it's not the most original thing in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. But you just can't help to have those comparisons. But I think despite all of that, he rises out of that shadow by the end of the movie and has some of my favorite scenes. I think he's quite funny in the role, and his, there's there's part of the movie where the four of them separate and go on a solo adventure, and his is like so over the top, and goofy, and I love like his persona that he comes up with. It's really funny.
It's fun performance, yeah. Like I guess after this, like he does things like Swim Fan and Cabin Fever, and then I guess he's one of the main guys in Dorm Days because he comes back for the sequel, Dorm Days 2. He's also supposedly playing David Lynch in some upcoming thing called 60 Minutes to Kill. I don't know
That's
what
interesting.
that is. I can't say I look at this man and I go, oh yeah, he looks like David Lynch. Nobody looks like David Lynch.
In a movie about David Lynch, doesn't it make a lot of sense for the person playing David Lynch to look nothing like David Lynch?
That's probably accurate. Mostly because like would you say Timothy Chalamet looks like Bob Dylan?
No, I haven't seen that movie. I saw the trailers and I was kind of surprised, but they got the I don't know. You do the frizzy hair and you're halfway there. I don't know.
Right. It's so I think I kind of have that same thought though, where like for me, like I'm not gonna watch a movie and be like, oh, this guy doesn't look exactly like, does Cillian Murphy look like Oppenheimer? Not really, kind of, but like
Lost a lot of weight.
it's
I
all in
think
the performance. Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio as Howard Hughes is like nothing. It looks nothing like him. But I thought,
Not
I agree
close,
about the
but,
performance. Now, if you were to make, like I said, this guy did a lot of like experimental film stuff. So like, if you're making some kind of weird experimental thing about David Lynch, I get it. It doesn't matter, looks nothing like him. But if you were to make like a semi-serious autobiographical film about David Lynch, Andrew, how cool would it be to cast Kyle MacLachlan as David Lynch?
I think that's what you have to do.
You have to, right? Because he's more or
can't not
less
do it.
playing David Lynch, and he's like a stand-in for Lynch in a lot of the stories he's in, right? And
I
that
don't know
kind
that
of
I go as far as to say he's a stand-in necessarily, but like, because the thing about Twin Peaks is David Lynch is in Twin Peaks is a completely different character. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that like he's like a stand-in for David Lynch, but like to me, I think if you're like at bare minimum you use MacLachlan as like, because for me I would almost want to go like the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus route, where like David Lynch is played by a variety of different people over the different points in his career, and then you just use MacLachlan as like the bookend Lynch at the end, basically. Like old
Andrew,
MacLachlan is old David Lynch.
I don't recall. Have you seen I'm Not There, the Bob Dylan movie?
No. I don't.
You know the gimmick of that,
Bob
though,
Dylan
right?
A lot of people, all different people played Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Um,
And none of them are Bob Dylan. They're all like, they have different names. It's like short stories intertwined. They're playing different characters, and you just know that, they're based on different aspects of Bob Dylan. But I think that would also be interesting approach. Very Lynchian.
I don't mean to be rude, Chris, but I've never been the biggest Bob Dylan fan.
See, I know that about you, and for that reason, I really want you to, because like I'm Not There is one of my favorite movies, even though in a lot of ways it's the type of movie that I don't usually connect with
Normally
because
don't
of
like,
how
yeah.
esoteric it is. But
You ain't seen nothing yet, man. Wait for the end of this month.
Oh boy,
I am so unbelievably excited for you to watch Ed, and for you to text me immediately afterwards and be like, Andrew, the show is done.
You know what's funny is I paid $60 to watch that movie because I bought that box set that it's in.
Set.
I mean,
Now, to be fair,
there's other movies
there's
in here.
other
I wanna
great
watch,
movies
but,
in that set. Like King of Marvin Gardens is really, really good. But yeah, I will get there eventually.
Okay. I love I'm Not There, but I also love Bob Dylan. I love his music. I've read a lot about him, and I can really put the pieces together for the movie saying. And I'm curious how the movie reads to someone who's not a big Bob Dylan fan. Like what you get out of it. Is it more of a mess? Is it still straightforward? I don't know. I'm very curious how you would read that movie. So, I'll just add it to the list of things that I bug you to watch. Andrew, let's round out this band, Mystery, the Kiss tribute band. You have Giuseppe Andrews as Lex. Now, Andrew, if you're telling me that Trip was basically supposed to be Jay from Jay and Silent Bob, Lex, I can't not I can't help but think that this was Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And again, 99. This is the same year as 10 Things I Hate About You, where he plays a high school student. So maybe he hasn't aged out of it by then. But
Yeah, he's
this
actually
guy's
only 17 in 98.
well, there you
Joseph
go.
Gordon-Levitt is.
I wouldn't go as far as to say like they tried to get Joseph Gordon-Levitt and couldn't, so they settled for this guy. I think maybe Giuseppe Andrews just maybe kind of looks like him. I don't know. I obviously I'm way more susceptible to this kind of stuff than you are, Andrew. Were you getting Joseph Gordon-Levitt vibes from Giuseppe Andrews?
Not really, but I wasn't really thinking about it. Didn't necessarily cross my radar when I was watching this performance. He just, this is the character I think kind of gets no disrespect to Giuseppe. He doesn't really he gets like the least to kind of work with in that regard. Like he gets a big moment where he kind of like saves Natasha Lyonne's character, but like it's not really to me on the same kind of level as everybody else's is, where everybody else kind of gets this big kind of personal triumph. But yeah, he's the one that like had like people compared him to John Waters or Harmony Korine. And also in some of the same movies, like he was in Cabin Fever, which James DeBello was in. He was in Homo Erectus, which is something Adam Rifkin did. So like he built some relationships here, and then just kind of, like I said, I guess moved on. Wasn't really into it, and that's completely understandable, completely expected. People have often spoken about how it's a real grind, especially kind of as being a kind of more of a bit part actor versus being a star. It can be a very brutal living. So, but yeah, here doing a perfectly fine job with everything he's been given. I probably remember him briefly as one of Randy Quaid's kids in Independence Day. That's probably unfortunately the biggest thing that I know him from. He was also in American History X with Edward Furlong. I don't know. It's tough for me to watch American History X now. Like it's
it's always been tough to watch. But yeah, I can't imagine just sitting around like, you know what? Let's throw this on.
Let's revisit this. Like if you had that on your shelf, I think somebody would just look at you and go like, huh. It's kind of like I used to have this book called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shire, which is just a document of just that, the rise and fall of the Third Reich. And the problem is that the version I had, and this thing is like a textbook, to be very clear. Like it's a dense read. But if you want a breakdown of essentially a real first-hand account of the rise and fall of this group, it's very, very informative. But the one I had a giant swastika on the spine. And I had that
just
on
catches
my shelf
the eye.
Every time I literally think I was on a Zoom call with a friend and they were like, I can't help but notice on behind you there. And I was like, oh no. That's like, I gotta get a much less conspicuous version. So I finally found a version that was like just blank. Like it's just text on a cover. And I was like, there we go.
At least the title is, the rise and the fall of the Third. It's not like the Third Reich. Where did it go wrong? Like it's not like that. It's just very. It's like that Norm Macdonald joke where he's like, the more I read about Hitler, the less I like this guy.
Oh man, yeah, I definitely was like, yeah, you gotta do something about this, man, and so I did. But yeah, American History X, I feel like would have a very similar reaction at this point.
Lynn Shay plays Mrs. Bruce, plays Jam's mom. She's the main parental figure, I guess the only parent of these kids that we see in the movie, and she is,
Dare
like
I
we
say,
said,
the antagonist of the film.
I guess that's fair. So she is a single parent, it seems, and super overprotective of Jam, trying to protect him from all the dangers of the world, including Kiss.
One particular danger.
Yeah, the devil's music. Super over the top character. A lot of teen movies have a character like this, an authority figure that is like super over the top and seems to just like, do you just hate kids for some reason?
Yeah.
But she plays the part very well. These days, she's got to be most known for her roles in the Insidious franchise, right? That's definitely the first place my brain goes. She's like a medium, right? In those movies.
Yeah. She's like she's the resource they seek out that basically is essentially the person who's the expert on this sort of stuff, and She's in the first 4 of those, because the first 2 are kind of that same bookended story with Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne. And then 3 and 4 are kind of like standalone, almost prequels, I think, because her character, the end of 2 makes it difficult to do more stories with her character. But then they go back and do kind of 2 prequels that take place before the first one with her and the ghost hunters, basically. And then they did do a 5th Insidious, but it was Patrick Wilson directing, and it went back to like the original family and characters. And I feel like there's a tribute to her character in the movie, but I don't remember if she's actually in it. I guess I could look. Insidious: The Red Door. She is listed in this cast. So she does come back in some way. But and Insidious: The Red Door is very okay.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say like it brings the franchise back. It's okay. Okay, it's very okay.
I've never minded any of them, but the first 2 definitely with their kind of bookended story. Like this one was cool, seeing Patrick Wilson in the directing chair. I think he directs it very, very well, but it's kind of just in a problem not bereft of many horror sequels. It's one of those things where like by the end of it, you're just kind of like, don't know that we did anything that we haven't already done here, but they build a good atmosphere, and I would be very interested in seeing Patrick Wilson direct more stuff. So hopefully he does. Hopefully. We'll see. But anyway, Lin Shaye is great. She's in this as like, and this is like, I feel like she kind of got known for being like in horror stuff for a while there, but here she's kind of like just a very overprotective, strict parent, but I think she still does a good job with it. And it's good stuff. I always like Lin Shaye when I see her show up. I'm happy to see her. And she's pretty much, I've never been sad to see her on my screen. I think she's always giving it her all, no matter what she's doing.
There is a couple young women we should talk about in this cast. First one is Melanie Lynskey as Beth. This is a classmate of Jam, and it's very obvious in like the one scene they have together in class that they have a crush on each other. And then she happens to show up later in the movie, and they admit to each other they like each other, and they have some fun scenes. But she is just like a super sweet girl next door type. It really matches the sweet, innocent energy of Jam. And like I said, has a few fun scenes. But I don't immediately recognize her, but I wanted to look up her filmography. This woman works a lot. Around this time, she's also in But I'm a Cheerleader. Before this, she was already in The Frighteners and Ever After. She goes on to do Coyote Ugly. She has a small part in Sweet Home Alabama, Flags of Our Fathers, The Informant, Up in the Air. I mean, just a ton of stuff I've heard of and have not heard of. Bouncing back and forth between like Hollywood and independent. Constantly working. I mean, like most years has 2 and 3 movies coming out. It's wild, but what a career. Gotta be proud of that.
Yeah, and like a lot of television stuff too. She showed up in an episode of Poker Face recently. She had some episodes of The Last of Us. She's in that show Yellow Jackets. She's one of the main cast on that one, I believe. Just a lot of and what's shocking to me and what I didn't know is that she's from New Zealand. And I like how her Wikipedia is like known for her portrayals of complex women and her command of American accent.
I mean, like, I can't tell. Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, like I would have never assumed that she was from New Zealand, because like I've watched a lot of Australian and New Zealand television shows at this point, and like panel shows, and like you hear what they sound like, and she does like at no point like does it feel like you're watching, because like I love people like Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Hiddleston are good actors, but when they speak in American accents, you can kind of tell that they're they're doing a good job, but like it's not how they normally talk. With her, I would never have known. But it's a fantastic. She's a fantastic actress, like you said, working all the time. Also in But I'm a Cheerleader with Natasha Lyonne, who's also in this movie.
Is it Leone or Leone, Andrew? Do you pronounce the E?
I don't know.
I think it's just
made a
Leon.
choice. I just made a choice.
He just- Chris, I think
don't
it's just Eon Grafud. I think you just say it how it's spelled.
is it Scone or is it Scone? It's Scone because it has an E at the end, you savage. But I don't know. But anyway, Melanie Lynskey is great. Like I said, a bit small part here. Maybe a little on the obsessive side there at the beginning when she's written this guy's name in a variety of increasing elaborate ways in her notebook.
Who
At
among
the
us,
beginning
Andrew?
of the movie?
Who
Who hasn't? And who doesn't find those notebooks years later and go to prison? Not me. But it's a fun performance. Plays a part in Jam's arc of giving him kind of some resolution to a variety of different things he's got going on. But yeah, good stuff.
Now, Andrew, I mentioned there's a scene from the trailers that is like burned into my brain. In my mind, everyone remembers these trailers and remembers this joke. I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly seemed to be like it really stuck with me. And it's the scene where they're driving slowly on the side of the road. There's a woman walking on the side of the road, and I think it is Lex who says, a teen girl walking on the side of the road. They make horror movies that start off that way. And then Trip in the front seat turns it back and goes, yeah, man, but they make pornos that start that way too. Every single trailer for this movie. And I feel like that was like the thing that everyone knew from this movie. Again, I haven't polled people. I don't know if that's true. That's always stuck with me. But people today in 2025 that remember that scene might be surprised to learn that that is Natasha Lyonne walking on the side of the road. They pick her up, and then she steals the car, and then she factors into the story later. We'll talk about all that when we get to scenes. But she
does not
is
steal the car.
Oh, I'm sorry. They think she steals the car, but they stole the car with her in it. Thank you for the correction, Andrew. I didn't want to drag her name through the mud for no reason. I really like her scene in the car. We'll get to when we talk about scenes. But the boys are not kind to her, but she stands her ground in a way I really enjoyed and was kind of surprised by. It took me a minute to... I'm like, I know she looks familiar, but once she starts talking, she sounds like Natasha Lyonne. Like, oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
That's her. There's definitely like I don't know if Orange is the New Black is the divide, where like her young career and her older career, where she really like, I guess, defines her look or whatever. But she's always takes me to recognize her in like earlier stuff like this. But she's great in the movie. Not a huge part, of course, but I think she nails the scenes that she is in.
Yeah, I think Orange is the New Black is the divide, because like everything after that is like, because she was really, really good in Orange is the New Black, and I think that was kind of like a resurgence for a bit, because she has this not unprolific career in the late 90s, stuff like this, but I'm a cheerleader, and has some moments there, and it's and I guess she did have a career as like a child actress to an extent, and then shows up in some of the American Pie movies, like as a whole big thing. And she's in 1, 2, and Reunion, I think. I don't know. I have not gone back and rewatched the American Pie movies in
I'm sure they age
some
like
time. Again,
an American Pie
like,
that was baked in 1999 and left on a counter for 26 years.
aged like milk. But it's so I think Orange is the New Black definitely kind of reestablishes her. And then since that, you've gotten things like Russian Doll, Poker Face, the few things in film, including Fantastic Four, and all sorts of fun stuff. But she's not a whole lot to do here. They pick her up on the side of the road. She falls asleep because I guess they give her some weed. And then the car is stolen, and she gets kind of kidnapped as part of that, I guess. The guys go to steal the car, realize there's somebody in the back, and just chain her up at their chop shop.
Best not to look into it too much, Andrew.
It's like, guys, what's your end game here? Like, what's the plan here? And so it's not a whole lot to work with here. But then Giuseppe saves her from this fate after he learns to command the junkyard dogs with a frisbee. And somehow a man turns into the Aquaman of angry dogs at junkyards.
The Aquaman of junkyard dogs. What do we call this, Andrew? Terrestrial man? Terra man?
Earthman, Dogman. It's specifically dogs though. But
The dog whistle. The dog whistler. That has some kind
the
of
dog whistler. Yeah, don't do that. Let's best to run away from this now. But
What if he can
but,
communicate with dogs, but is also like secretly like super racist?
like I said, running away from this now. Oh God.
All right.
Anyway,
the dog whistler coming soon.
Yeah. The first season of Russian Doll, I remember being very, very good.
Dude, the first season of Russian Doll, I was literally telling people this might be the best Netflix original. I think that and Mindhunter, like my favorites. I could not finish season 2.
I never watched season 2. I did watch season 1, but it's been a hot minute. But I've never.
Season
watched
1 was great. Season 2, they completely changed the gimmick, and it loses me so fast. Hashtag PP. But Poker Face, one of the best shows on TV.
Love it.
Fantastic.
Haven't finished season 2 yet, but have been having a really, really good time with everything we've watched so far.
All right, Andrew, that covers our main cast. Let's talk about this movie. Let's jump into scenes, and let's just start with the best scene of the film, or at least our personal favorite. So, in your opinion, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is the best scene of Detroit Rock City?
To me, it's just the finale. You know, once all the hardships and struggles, such as they are, when it all kind of finally culminates in them actually getting into the concert, when the previous actions by Trip actually play in, and they're actually able to, like, you know, because all of it comes around in a way that I don't know is necessarily, like, you know, it's not some masterclass in storytelling. Similar to Dude, Where's My Car in that regard, where, like, all of the dumb crap throughout the movie just kind of comes back in the finale. And, you know, some of it's clunky, some of it's whatever, but just to have that final moment where, like, they do get the catharsis. Trip kind of gets revenge on the guys that messed with him and took his money. And then they finally just get in to see Kiss. And it is Kiss. It's the real members of the band. The makeup really does help hide the age.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. This wouldn't work with a lot of other bands because they'd be like, well, they're obviously super old. It's supposed to be the 70s, but like they just look like Kiss.
Yeah, Ace Frehley looks like a soggy bowl of Product 19. It's pretty rough, but it's I've considered seeing Ace Frehley in concert before just because I really do enjoy his guitar playing. But and it's also much cheaper to see Ace Frehley than it is to see any of the other guys. But it's him and Peter Criss should do a tour called The Other Half. And it would probably do decent. But but this is just the whole movie comes around to this. You get Kiss. I think they're playing Detroit Rock City, which is a good song. That's from the Destroyer album, which is probably Kiss's best album. It's a genuinely great song off a genuinely great album. Like, Destroyer is got it's Detroit Rock City, God of Thunder, Shout It Out Loud, Beth. A lot of it's top to bottom. I think it's their strongest album. Not that anybody asked me what the strongest Kiss album was, but I can actually listen to that whole album. I wouldn't say there's no skips, but you can listen to it without skipping, if that makes sense. But it's just the cathartic moment where these four guys that have been trying to see Kiss and have run into all these obstacles finally get their moment. They get to witness it up close and personal. Peter Criss throws out a drumstick that Jam gets to catch because he lost one of his. It's cool. Like I said, I think I literally texted you like that. My reaction after the movie finished, like the credits rolled, and it was just a guy going, "Good for them." Like that's literally the thought in my head where I was just like, you know what? I'm glad you guys got there.
I love that the movie ends here. Like the whole thing's about getting to the concert. We get to the concert, we see one big production. Roll credits. That's it. There's nothing else for these characters. And like, I think a lesser movie or a mistake would have been to have like an epilogue and how does Jam, deal with the fallout from his mom or this and that. But it's just like, we don't need to see anything else. We finally got to the concert. We see. I'm not surprised the concert's not a little bit longer. We just get the one song. I'm surprised it's not 2 or 3, but it's great. I mean, the whole running time's a little over 90 minutes. We're in and out. Perfect length for a teen comedy like this. And I love the restraint to just end right there. in the concert. I do think how they finally get in is genuinely very clever. You know, all four of them go off on this scheme to try to get into the concert. They all fail. They come back together, and I think it's Lex it's Lex or Jam who's just like, okay, I have an idea. What if we just beat each other up? And we tell the ticket takers that someone mugged us. They'll have to let us in, right? They'll have to. And Hawk just thinks about it for a second and goes, why not? And just sucker punches him, and we have this huge, like, it's, you know, set to this operatic music. What song is that, Andrew? Chariots of Fire? What is that?
Oh, what is that? I don't remember.
You know, that
yeah,
song.
That's yeah.
I mean, it's like a bloody, like, blood spurt. They beat the hell out of each other. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, oh, this is the gag, because they're just not going to get in, because just showing that you beat up proves nothing. So at first it doesn't work at the ticket takers. Like, you expect us to believe that? Like, yeah, look at us. And Trip points out the bullies that beat him up earlier. He's like, those four took our tickets. And they have my wallet to prove it, which it fits in so neatly. I'm like, that's all his Kiss Army ID is in there to prove it's his. Like, I thought that was very satisfying, the way that all, like, fit together, because when he gets beat up earlier, it doesn't feel like we're setting up this thing to come back later. But I think the way it comes back is genuinely very clever, and the catharsis of them finally getting an easy kiss is genuinely very fun. And fun fact about this concert scene, Andrew, for a movie that bombed in theaters, they went all out for this DVD. There's apparently 4 audio commentary tracks. One of them is the members of Kiss. Kiss did audio commentary for this whole movie, which, what do they talk about for 80 minutes of this movie? Like, I
might have to buy this movie. So
I'm very curious. And there's been 2. They issued the DVD twice, is the original DVD issue, and then they reissued it to include in a Kiss box set. This movie is in a Kiss box set, which I think is super cool. I mean, for anyone who was thinking,
well,
like,
that's also why I'm, like, relatively convinced that, like, Kiss had to be a driving force.
Yeah.
There's no way that they can't be, as far as I'm concerned, at that point. Like, if you're going to that degree to do that, then yeah, I think you're tacitly admitting that you're part of this.
There was eventually a Blu-ray. I think it might be out of print because it seems a little pricey out there, but the DVD is much cheaper. And on top of all the special features, one of the special features is alternate angles for the concert. Do you remember DVD remotes had the angle button?
Yeah,
it works here. You can push angles and you can change the angle during the concert, which is super cool. Again, for a movie that bombed, they really went all out for that DVD. And I gotta imagine, I mean, this probably still never was a super financially successful movie, but 99 DVD sales, home video sales were still strong. It made some money there. And then, teenagers finally get to see the movie, without sneaking in, which doesn't add to the profit. Probably had some legs there. But yeah, this is a great pick, Andrew. It's just a satisfying. It's the way the movie has to end, and like I said, I respect the fact that it just ends during the concert and doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a good pick. For my favorite pick, I'm gonna rewind just a little bit. I think overall the best part of the movie is when they go their 4 separate ways and each go on their own mini mission. I like all 4 of those stories. I like cutting back forth between all of them. And I think overall this is just the strongest part of the movie, leading right into that finale. But I guess for favorite scene, I should pick one. So as weird as it is, I'm going to go with my Mark Strong Award winner's scene. He is trying to buy tickets from a scalper, and the scalper convinces him to go shake his pee-pee on stage. That's the phrasing he keeps using. Go win that strip contest, and you'll have the money to buy, to scalp this ticket. So he goes into this strip club, male strip club, which let me figure out word this correctly. You would expect this to be a titty bar. You would expect this in this type of movie to him end up in a strip club somehow. The fact that it's a male strip club is so much funnier. And I love that he is sitting at the bar trying to work up the nerve. The bartender offers him a drink, which you find out very quickly he doesn't really understand what that means. because he sets a liquor down in front of him. He's like, "What is this?" He's, "Oh, it's a bourbon, bourbon on the rocks." And he takes one sip and spits it out. And he's like, "I think it's gone bad." And I love that reminder.
Which is
like,
a joke from Wayne's World 2. There's one part where she offers him a drink in Wayne's World 2, and he drinks it, and he goes, "Yeah, this Coke's gone bad."
it's funny if it ain't broke, Andrew. But I like the reminder that these are high school kids, and yeah, they smoke pot or whatever, but like, he's never had liquor, one, and two, like, liquor objectively doesn't taste good. It's an acquired taste, at best. So the fact that he just takes a big, swig of liquor for the first time and spits it out makes a lot of sense. But a woman is buying him drinks, which I didn't verify this. I read in a comment somewhere that's Gene Simmons' wife in real life, which makes this storyline even weirder. So he's slamming some drinks, and he finally, has the courage to go up on stage. They call him. And as soon as he stands up from the bar stool, he face plants onto the ground. He's drunk for the first time. Very funny. He stands up and like triumphantly walks to the stage. There's like cool music playing. Like, he's going to do it. He's going to get on stage. He gets up there in front of everybody. Like I said, it's like a montage. Just beautiful music playing. And then as soon as the music cuts, he drops to his knees and vomits so fiercely. And Andrew, I'm a sucker for a good vomit bit in a sketch comedy, in a movie, or wherever. It's the kind where it's super obvious. There's just like a hose spraying fake vomit beside his mouth. It's not actually coming out of his mouth, but the way it like comes out with like the force of a water hose, and it just keeps going. Andrew, this bit will get me every time. I mean, Team America might be like the crown jewel of the puking scene, but
Demon.
I was laughing quite hard at this, and he fills up a pitcher like to the top with his puke.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and then he continues with the show. Like, he wins the crowd back. He gets a kiss, gets him to play a Kiss song. He dances to it. This is where like I'm impressed Edward Furlong was willing to like do this for the sake of comedy. He does this very bad job stripping. He, falls off the stage at one point. It's just a 17, it's just a high school kid. Doesn't know what he's doing stripping. Nothing about it is sexy. And I love that we see the results of the contest with all these like buff, half naked dudes on stage with Edward Furlong in the middle. And the winner is Sirloin, a guy dressed as a knight, which, sidebar, Sirloin is a genius name for a night stripper, because you have the obvious knight pun, Sir, he's a knight named Loin. Then you have the hunk of meat pun, he's a sirloin. And then you have he's sirloin, like your loins, like your crotch. It works on so many levels, and it's just used as a throwaway joke, but I want to throw kudos out there. So, top to bottom, I thought this was just a really fun, weird bit, but fun. I like Edward Furlong really going for the comedy, really stretching himself a little bit. I like all the jokes about a kid getting drunk for the first time. I love violent puking in my movies. It always makes me laugh. So I'm going to highlight. I like all four of their little stories, but if I got to pick one, I'm going to highlight this one.
Okay.
Hey, I didn't.
I don't have much to say to that.
I didn't highlight the weirdest part where he goes and has sex with that woman in the car, but some of the most graphic dialogue I've ever heard. She calls him a premature Peter, and he goes, "God, now you've seen me and my dick throw up."
So many choices being made.
So many
choices. Oh God.
What's your favorite side?
Yes.
Because I really like this part of the movie, Andrew. So if Edward Furlong stripping on stage and puking isn't your favorite of the four, which little mini adventure did you enjoy?
I think they all serve a purpose. Obviously, the Edward Furlong one I think is the one that, like, obviously the most extravagant, the most over the top.
I don't know.
and
Trips I thought was a dream sequence for a while. Then I realized,
yeah,
oh
Trips
wait,
is
this
like
is
a fever dream where like he just genuinely like, so I do like that scene a lot where like, and it is an interesting moment for Trip because Trip says earlier in the movie, I'm only here until I'm old enough to drop out, and then I'm gonna do that. Just the very classic burnout. School serves no purpose, and he sees like this future for him where he can like just drop out of school and he doesn't have to worry about it. So this sequence has a purpose to kind of close that loop off by showing him that like, oh, so like he's looking for money. He's trying to get to this Kiss concert. He's run into this kid and his 3 adult goons that are all just basically demanding $200 from him, and he doesn't really know what to do with it. And then finally, his solution is to rob the store. But then when he goes to rob the store, someone else robs the store first. And so he kind of stands up, makes a move. Like, the whole premise of this is ridiculous because this guy is pointing a shotgun at him and he just fights him off, basically. Ends up,
with a
smacks him in the face, a Stretch Armstrong.
yes,
With a Stretch Armstrong. The guy just at one point is like, you and what army? And he says, the Kiss Army. And then he fights the guy, and then the cashiers, of course, overcome with lust for Trip at this point, and he calls himself Dr. Love, and she's way into it. And,
that's the part where I'm like, okay, he's dreaming. The cashier is like running over for a kiss, and he's like, yeah, call me Dr. Love. I was like, oh, this is like his imaginary version of, we're going to cut to reality where he's on the ground knocked out or whatever. But nope, not where they go.
No, it's definitely the most unbelievable part of the movie, and it really snaps the illusion for me. But it's it's fun stuff, and so it obviously shows him that like, oh, cool, if I drop out of school just like I was going to, I'm going to end up robbing convenience stores like this guy, which the accuracy of the statement can be whatever, but it definitely feels like a fever dream at times where you're just like, oh, this is all just actually happening.
I love that his plan is to beat up a little kid and steal his tickets. That's his big genius plan. He finds a kid with Kiss makeup and he threatens to take his ticket. But the little kid calls over his older brother named Chongo, which is such a great name for a big hulking, archetype. And he walks over. He's a super buff dude. These are the guys that jump him, and he ends up taking their tickets, like we talked about in the finale. I love this moment here when he's considering knocking over the convenience store, and he has his 3 friends like pop up as little heads around him, trying to talk him out of it. It's again, a trope we've seen a lot, but there's a small little detail that I really appreciated is after them talking to him and he's deciding to go through with it anyway, all of their heads pop like they're bubbles, but their faces like distort before they do. They go whoop, and each one like pops.
Yeah.
It's just a little detail that didn't need to be there, but I thought was a fun little touch there. That's Trip. Lex is actually very successful in getting into the show because he just sneaks in backstage. He has security guards chasing after him and he loses them a few times, but he gets to like carry a drum, a kick drum at one point. He gets to like crawl around the air ducts backstage. This is like where the movie goes hardest on R, because a lot of topless women, just casual shots. This is what it's like backstage at a Kiss concert. It's a bunch of naked women. There's one shot of this dude in a hot tub, but it's like surrounded by naked women, and the very last person in the credits is really lucky hot tub dude. That's how he's credited, which I thought was really fun.
I guess if it's true, it's true.
But eventually he does get caught by security guards and thrown out. And then that's where he runs into those junkyard dogs that he tames. He finds the car he thought Natasha Lyonne stole, but actually Chop Shop guy stole him. He sticks the dogs on him and saves the day. That's his little story. And then Jam meets up with his mom. She sees him there, so she's pissed that he's still trying to go to this concert. First off, she's there at a rally for... Let me make sure I get the names right. There's a big banner, Mothers Against the Music of Kiss. Andrew, I'm shocked that it's not a funny anagram. Not anagram. What's it called? Like Moms Against Drunk Driving.
Oh,
What do you call that?
God, what are those called? Is that not an anagram?
Anagrams, and he changed the order to make a new word.
Oh.
Wow, this is bothering me. And I'm surprised it doesn't make a funny word. Like
An
it's
acronym. An
it's-
acronym.
Thank you. It's Matt Mock. Like it's not like I'm. It's just a real missed opportunity to not make something obscene or funny. But at any rate, she catches him there. She throws him into a church to confess. And I love. All right, so he's in this confessional. He's like, "Yeah, I don't really have anything to confess." And so the priest walks out. He's like, "Well, you better think of something. I'll be back." While the priest is gone, Beth from high school sneaks into the confessional with him, and we don't really acknowledge how insane it is. He's in another city. She happens to be there, see him going to this church, and sneak in there with him. He doesn't ask, like, how'd you get in here? The only thing he says when she goes into confessional is, "Beth, I thought you were Jewish." Which, that being his first thought, is very funny. They confess
Good joke, though. Good
their
joke.
feelings to each other. They have sex in the confessional. The priest comes back, and the priest is like, "We have something to confess." He's like, "Yeah, I do." And he tells a story about how he got hot and heavy with this girl, and he says, "You wouldn't believe what she was wearing." And the priest is like getting really into the story. He's like, "Oh, a bustier, a bra, a leather thong," and he keeps rattling things off while they sneak out, and the horny priest is still going through what she was wearing. But this moment gives him the courage to finally stand up to his mom. He meets her on that stage, and he tells her off. He tells her like it is. Says, like, "You're actually a bad mom for doing this." I'm paraphrasing. And he says why he has this courage. He screams to the crowd, "I just lost my virginity in a confessional booth. Lord have mercy," which is a great line for a teen to say in a movie like this. They don't really resolve. Like, it's all about him telling his mom off. And there's not a moment where she, like, comes around or, "Well, just know that I love you, son. I only do this because..." There's nothing like that. He just finally sticks it to his mom, and then they never interact again. Which, again, I gotta respect that the less is more approach to this movie and wrapping things up.
Yeah, it is interesting that the moment is the standing up to the mom, and it's interesting in that, like, what he says is clearly, like, meant to resonate. Like, the mom is clearly, like, taken aback, but, like, you don't really know what's going to happen next. And I don't know, it kind of works for me. It's a little bit like, I guess, the end of Ferris Bueller, where, like, they knock the car down and Cameron basically just says, "No, I'm going to do this." Like, the moment is the
standing up is the moment.
The standing up is the action. And what comes next. And, like, I think the movie in general kind of plays that way with the ending, where, like, Edward Furlong overcomes the stage fright, but does that mean their band becomes successful? Tripp has realized that he kind of has to make a little bit more of himself, and being the dropout from high school is not necessarily the path forward and stuff like that. Like, they all kind of make these realizations, except Giuseppe. I don't know that he really, like, has any revelations about himself necessarily, but he just gets with Natasha Lyonne, but which,
Hey,
good for him.
good
But
work if you can get it.
nice work if you can get it. So in that regard, like, the movie's not concerned with what's next, and I don't really have a problem with that. Like, you're basically getting, in a lot of ways, it kind of is like Ferris Bueller. Like, at the end of Ferris Bueller, you don't really know what Ferris's future holds. You don't know what his girlfriend's. You don't know what anybody's future holds. But it's that moment, and I've always said that I've never been one of those people that, like, subscribes to the notion that, like, Ferris Bueller is like an illusion or something, which doesn't make any sense. But, like, Cameron is the one in that movie who has the best arc, that actually kind of learns something and has to start standing up for himself. And but what's next is not really material. And that's true for this as well. Like, you're seeing a snapshot of their lives on this day and what they went through to see this concert. And what comes next just doesn't matter to that story. You could have done, like, an Animal House-esque, like, Trip died in Vietnam. Like, I don't know. Who could have done that, but it's not in the war. Just died in Vietnam. But
you would see Jam is back in a regular school. Trip got a haircut and he's paying attention in class. The band is playing original songs now. Like they're but
I'm kind of glad.
But it doesn't. Yeah, it wouldn't add to the movie. I agree, Andrew. One thing I didn't mention during that concert segment. I love the shot. I've always remembered it. Of
I know what you're going to say.
inside Gene Simmons' mouth, looking at the crowd, because Gene Simmons famous for his long tongue. They even acknowledged some of the rumors in the movie, like he got a cow tongue grafted to his, or he got the thing cut underneath his tongue or whatever. But I love the shot because it's 3 seconds, and it's not literally a camera inside Gene Simmons' mouth. It's a normal sized camera, and they built a huge fake rows of teeth and big mechanical tongue. Like, there was a lot of work put into this one shot, but it's totally worth it. It's very memorable. It's a lot of fun. I love thinking about the amount of effort that went into that, because I think we actually got to talk about one.
Of shot.
Like in Coneheads, there's a shot from inside his mouth where, you got to build a big rig to do that. I mean, I've seen it a number of times, but I appreciate the work that goes into something so small. You're like, no, this shot this matters. This is important. This is worth the thousands of dollars to put this stuff together.
Yeah, for sure.
I bet Gene Simmons kept the rig. I bet he kept 100%. That mechanical tongue.
That's in his house. It is.
Yeah.
It is. Unquestionably. But it's it's always fun to see that sort of stuff, just because you can it just shows that there's some work being put in. Like, obviously you didn't even need to do that shot. You could have just shown Gene Simmons using the tongue as he always does, but it's still fun to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mentioned I liked the scene where they pick up Natasha Lyonne in their car, and it's 4 horny dudes. They pick up this young woman. Trip in particular makes some very crass jokes and sexual remarks, and Jam is being the sensitive one and standing up for her or whatever. But I love that she really tells them off. In particular, whenever she declined his advances, he says, Trip says that she's a tease, and she's like, a tease? What did I do? Like, what did I possibly say that any of you could have read it as me coming on to you? Which is, you really puts them in their place, and it's the kind of thing where when a guy shouts something like that, it's total projection and insecurity about being rejected. And I love that she just doesn't stand for it. She doesn't demand to be thrown out of the car. She's just like, you're all dumb young idiots. Like, yeah, rock's cool, but so is disco. It's fun to dance to. Grow the hell up. And I love that there's this tension building in the car with all of them fighting. Meanwhile, they're passing a joint around, so they're kind of hotboxing in the car. She's clearly getting high. And when Edward Furlong says to lick his hairy crack, she says, why don't you bend over? You're looking right at it. And they kind of brings the car, everyone's silent. And they're like, that doesn't make any sense. And she thinks about it. She's like, yeah, what am I talking about? That doesn't make sense. Give me a hit of that J. And they just all smoke together and they're cool after that.
Yeah.
It's well written and doesn't go off in ways that I think would have been far less satisfying or aged much worse. I think I guess I just like that they treat her as a fifth character and not as the subject of the boys getting witty lines in.
Yeah, they definitely try to do a little bit of stuff like that, but then it just really, like I said, she stands up, kicks back, and I think it works really well. I like it a lot.
Dude, there's this one shot. Again, it kind of going back to I love that they built a big mouth for that one shot. It's after they spring Jam from boarding school. So we got all 4 of them in the car. There's a shot where the camera is at the center of the car, and it does a 360 highlighting each kid in the car. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, how do you do this? Because cameras are very big. They don't natively fit in a car like that. I don't know if it's a special car. It's got to be like when the kid's not on camera, they get out of the car. So there's room. I don't really know, but it's very impressive. These days you could use an iPhone to get. You could use something much smaller, but like in 1999, you got a full camera. You got to spin it in the center of a car. It's one of those shots that, again, is super simple, but a lot of work had to go into that just to get that one spinning shot of all the kids.
Yeah, it's a good one. And yeah, that's one of those things where it's just like, it's not to the level of the Superman 3 shot, but it's still pretty impressive.
Right. Overall, Andrew, I had a lot of fun with this. Like, I know I saw the movie once upon a time. There's a few things I remembered. I remember that joke from the trailers. I remember the Gene Simmons tongue shot. Maybe a few other things, but I didn't really know what to expect going back to watch it. I thought it would be way more about, maybe more Kiss-centric in a way that doesn't age very well, but I think it has a lot of jokes that are just separate from it's just a fun teen comedy. Like, I think it was financially ruinous to make this a rated R movie, because you got to get kids in the theaters. But American Pie did it the same year and was successful, but that's the exception, not the rule.
Well, and also just you have a baser problem, I think, in that you are seemingly, and this is not a shot to anybody in the movie. It's not a shot about anything there, but like on a base level, you have made a teen comedy about a band their parents like. And I think you are giving yourself an uphill battle.
But that 70s show is already a hit at this point. So that might be what they're thinking.
But that 70s show, that's definitely probably part of it too. Something like that 70s show is successful based off of that. I'm sure that's part of the mindset here. But that 70s show has a broad appeal on a base level. Like the music is part of that show and it's in the background.
Well, the music, the look, especially like the first season, they're talking about like the oil crisis and stuff. Like they go really hard on it being like set in the 70s.
But set in the 70s too, specifically about Kiss, are two different things.
Sure. And you don't have to be 18 or 17 to watch that show on TV.
Right. So you've got not just an R-rated comedy, which is not inherently something you can't overcome, but it's specifically about a band that teenagers in 1999 do not listen to. And I know this because I listened to Kiss in 99 and no one else did. And that's just, again, it's not the fault of anybody in the movie. It's not the fault of, I don't know whose fault it is. Probably the band for thinking they were that relevant. But that's something that's just, it would be like, if now they made a teen comedy about Usher's confession. It would be like, okay, cool. Does anybody, are teens now watching a movie about Usher?
There's got to be, Usher is, I'm not up to date with today's kids and music. I don't know. I feel like he's still known. There's got to be someone that feels like Kiss in 99 feels like, music your parents listen to. It feels out, even if they're still around, it feels like it's music for older people. I don't know if Usher has aged that way.
No.
Or maybe just culture doesn't move that fast anymore. Things stay relevant. I don't think
it moves that fast. Like, because like I was thinking, like, if somebody made a movie about, like, if you made a movie about like teens in 2004 going to see like Franz Ferdinand, like teens today are just not going to understand that at all.
Yeah.
But I guess the problem is that like we're the age the parents would be when Detroit Rock City was coming out. So like it's like we're telling on ourselves and calling ourselves old, and we're just like, hey, wait a minute, cut that out. But it's definitely something where I think that can't be ignored. That just like no matter what, you've got the rating, you've got the cast, you've got everything. At the end of the day, you made a teen comedy about a band that teens just don't listen to. And I think that was always going to be the biggest thing you had to overcome, is that. And they didn't, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it. Like, if you can say that it was, it's obviously unfortunate for anybody to make a movie that they put all their energy into and it's not successful. But at the same time, it feels to me like they were definitely trying to tap into that resurgence of interest in Kiss from the reunion tour in 96, 97, leading into their reunion album in 98. But by the time, it's also, again, like, who was excited about Kiss reuniting? Not kids and teenagers. They weren't the ones excited that Kiss was going back to the makeup. They weren't. It'd be more like Oasis just got back together and went on tour. Who was excited about Oasis getting back together? Not 16-year-olds. It was us and people older than us that were excited about Oasis getting back together. So I think that's actually a great example.
So
if
make a movie now about kids in
about people going to
1997
see
trying to get
Oasis.
to see Oasis. Yeah.
Yeah, so Oasis, those teenagers now are just going to kind of be like, why do I care?
Yeah.
Like, not to say that they don't like Oasis, not to say that Oasis can't be a band that they enjoy, but just that, like, it's not something that's going to resonate. It's going to resonate way more with us, which is, don't get me wrong, that's, I guess, if you're trying to tap into the nostalgia of it, sure, but like, you got to know your audience to a degree. And maybe that was the intention. Maybe they were trying to tap into adults that tried to see Kiss in the 70s and ran in, remembered all this problem. But again, it just didn't feel like that was really what they were going for.
2 quick notes before we get out of here, Andrew. The closing credits of this movie are fun. We talk a lot about how we like when they change, like, the Columbia opening or whatever. But the credits here, instead of just white text on a black screen, the text is almost like tie-dye colored. It's very 70s. Like, it's red when it's at the bottom of your screen, and it transitions to blue by the time it gets to the top. That's fun. That's cool. Unique credits. I'm for it. Thumbs up. And then also going to some of my the 4th note I wrote here is a girl farting is quite funny.
Yes. I don't know if speaking of unique credits real quick, the New Line tag at the front also they changed the music so that it's an electric guitar doing it instead of just the regular New Line cinema music, which I thought was a nice little touch as well to have.
I didn't catch that. That is good.
The hard rock New Line logo, but because we just talked about the New Line thing being nostalgic. But thought that was a fun little bit too. But yeah, perfectly fun movie if you're into watching teens try to sneak their way into a Kiss concert.
All right, Andrew, Real Bands Month kicking along here. It's been a good time. This is I'm a little ahead on the movies we've watched, and I love the variety we're getting out of this one. I think it's a pretty fun category, and I have a variety of different artists and music stuck out of my head watching these movies that we're watching. Andrew, it's time for your favorite segment, Ask Andrew. This is how we end every episode. I ask you a question, you have to answer it. And if you want to leave a question for Andrew, you can do that by joining our Discord. There's a link in the show notes. Come and join us. Hop on in. There's a channel there called Ask Andrew where you can leave your cues. That's where I'll be going for this week's Ask Andrew. This comes from Holden, a friend of the show, actually. He joined us for our Cable Guy episode. And after we announced the theme for this month, he dropped this question in here. And I quite enjoy it. It'll be obvious why he asked in just a moment.
Uh-oh.
Holden asks, Is Spinal Tap a movie about a real band? And they add some context. I will hold off on that. That's the question. Our theme this month is movies based around or involving real bands playing themselves. These are bands that put out albums, that make music you can listen to or stream. This is Spinal Tap. What do you think?
So the question essentially is, basically, the question that's essentially being asked is Spinal Tap a real band?
I think that's a big part of it. But also, the band was created because of the movie. The movie is what makes them a real band. It's why they become a band. Does that qualify? Because, we covered Popstar, And Andy Samberg, during the promotion of that movie, appeared as Connor for real on like MTV or late night shows and performed.
Mm-hmm.
Is Popstar based on a real band? I would say no. You know, it's
I
still
would also say no.
the Lonely Island playing a character.
Here's the difference I will point out between Spinal Tap and Popstar. He has not continued to play Connor for real in any real regard since Popstar, correct?
Correct.
Spinal Tap has continued to appear as Spinal Tap, has released additional albums as Spinal Tap, and will now be doing another movie. There's basically a spectrum here. I would say something like Connor for real is on the far end of when the movie was a thing. It was basically treated as Connor for real was a real person, even though he was clearly just fictional. There has been no attempt to continue Connor for real in any regard.
There's no Connor for real content that's not tied into the movie Popstar.
The movie.
Okay.
Spinal Tap has content beyond the movie This Is Spinal Tap. They have appeared in additional... they've made appearances as a band. They have semi-toured. The real members of Spinal Tap did an acoustic tour of Spinal Tap. It was very strange.
And that was Holden went on to say, even if they were created for a comedy skit, they have performed real concerts in real life, and I would argue they're a real band that has created real music. So that's where he stands on that.
The far end of the spectrum, on the other side, I would say, is something like the Monkees, who were 100% unequivocally created to be a fictional band on that television show and just sing tie-in songs that the record company was trying to release. However, the story of the Monkees is very much clear that, like, at a certain point, they demanded more control, and they eventually recorded whole albums that were just the four members of this, quote, fake band releasing album. They eventually released 8 albums, I think, during their initial run, and then eventually reunite several times, continue to tour, continue to release new albums without tie-in media really of any kind. Like, it's not like there was another movie coming out that prompted them to do another album. It was just, we're going to do an album. So I would say Spinal Tap, it's probably better to call them like a parody spoof band at this point, more than anything else, because while the band has continued to create content, the Monkees was real people ultimately at the end of the day, and it was the real people that became that band and took it over and made it into like a functioning entity. Spinal Tap is still fictional characters, no matter what. And so I don't, in the sense of like, does the band create additional content? Yeah. So like in that regard, yeah, they're a band, I guess. Like,
so,
you can't not be a band. If you're if you're putting out new albums of material, like, you're clearly a band. Like,
besides the fact that This Is Spinal Tap is a well-received movie, do you think it would qualify for what we're doing this month?
No.
Okay. You know what I think is pretty much dead on with Spinal Tap on your spectrum is Death Clock, the band from Metalocalypse.
Yes.
I've seen them in concert. Like, they tour. They're fun.
Yep.
But they were entirely
Gorillaz.
created for this TV show.
I'm kidding.
Gorillaz has no like TV movie attached to it, but similar, a lot of similarities. But yeah, they were made for this TV show.
Yeah.
You can see them making music, put out albums that aren't just ads for that TV show. But I wouldn't say, I mean, there's no Metalocalypse movie. If there was, though, I wouldn't say it's about a real band. So just to be clear, his question is This Is Spinal Tap a movie about a real band? No.
I would say no.
No. But but
only
Spinal Tap is a real band.
Spinal Tap became a real band. I think that's the key difference there too. By the time the Monkees make Head, they're already a band. They've already recorded albums of material by just the band members. They have moved beyond using they haven't moved beyond using like the Wrecking Crew and people like that, but they have asserted their control and presence within that entity. So that and they've toured. They were touring at that point too. So when Head comes out, It is the Monkees making a movie with Burt Ravelson and Jack Nicholson. You'll hear more about that later, folks. But Spinal Tap is not a thing before this is Spinal Tap. And those are fictional characters, whereas the Monkees very cleverly or strangely chose to use the guy's real names, which I think is another differentiator, because when Spinal Tap plays, you're not watching a band made up of Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer. You're watching them play characters, quote unquote. And so Spinal Tap has always been a performance. In that, like, Spinal Tap is not the three actors playing those characters. It is the three characters that are Spinal Tap. So it sits in an interesting spot where I would not say, obviously, This Is Spinal Tap is not about a real band, only on the base level that when that movie was made, Spinal Tap was not a real band. It is, and also Spinal Tap has a fictional history they speak about. That's another key.
That's a good point.
Like, and that's the same thing Connor for Real has. Like, Connor for Real has a fictional history as an artist. Spinal Tap has a fictional.
Well, not to go ahead of ourselves, we're about to cover Spice World, which is about a real band, but in the reality of that movie, they have fictional history, fictional stuff around them, fictional managers,
But
et cetera.
the Spice Girls are a real band before that movie's ever made. Like, the movie is taking the band and throwing them into a ridiculous situation that creates different things. But, like, Spice World is not the nugget from which the Spice Girls are born.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Real quick, there, Roland hopped in. He followed this up with, are the Blues Brothers a real band? Have they performed a show that you pay to go see? Like, I know they performed on Saturday Night Live. Has there ever been a Blues Brothers concert?
Yes.
Okay.
At least one.
So they're in the Spinal Tap area then, right?
I would say so. I don't think they ever toured when John Belushi was alive. That's not true. They performed as like a I would say the Blues Brothers are a comedy act.
Which
more
can
than
still be a
anything.
band. I mean, Weird Al's a
I think it'd
band.
still be a band.
Yeah.
And like the Blues Brothers band was always made up of real musicians too. It was never like other actors playing the parts. Like the Blues Brothers was Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, and then a band of real people.
Yeah.
Of rather like a real group behind them. Like it was most of Booker T and the MGs and a lot of others. But I would say, yeah.
Okay.
I would say the Blues Brothers are a band at this point again. Like by the time the movie comes out, the band has already been out and performing. Like they've done shows, like they opened for Steve Martin. That was one of the, so like several of the Blues Brothers albums that you can get are live performances because that's where a lot of that stuff was pulled from. So interesting question.
Well, there you go. It's a spectrum. Where do you think these real bands, fake bands fall in that spectrum? Can a fake band become a real band? And what does that even mean? There's lots of ways to go with this. If you want to join the discussion, you can do so by hopping into that Discord I mentioned earlier. Again, there's a link right there in the show notes. What are you waiting for? Be sure to come back next week. Well, we will be talking about Spice World. I can't wait. And until then, just remember that maybe not every movie is great.
But all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. You can check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. And thanks to Mitch for the music. You can check him out on Blue Sky and check our show notes for his SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. It's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. What do we call this, Andrew? Terrestrial man? Terra man?
Earthman. Dog man. It's specifically dogs though. But
The dog whistle. The dog whistler. That has some
the
kind of
dog whistler. Yeah, don't do that. Let's best to run away from this now. But
What if he can
but,
communicate with dogs, but is also like secretly like super racist?
like I said, running away from this now. Oh, God. The dog whistler, and all he is just super racist because he talks to dogs. Like all of everything, all he says to dogs is super racist stuff.
These
That's
dogs
all
shouldn't be
the
kept in
damn
cages. Only some people.
Oh dear. Oh no. Cut all that, please.